So it's good to be back at Cloud Field Day. We were here quite a bit with Tech Field Day and Cloud Field Day in 2020. And I believe this is our first time back in 2021, so we're glad to be here. One of the things I want to say is that you're going to be hearing from different parts of the organization today. And so you're going to be hearing from engineering and architecture, as well as some tech marketing and product management and et cetera, as we kind of go through different parts of the portfolio that we're going to be talking about today. So as far as Red Hat goes, OpenShift is really, in a portfolio sense, kind of has an ecosystem around it. Obviously includes our premier Linux with the RHEL, but it's also this layer in which people can interact with this platform regardless of where you're running, be it virtual, be it physical, be it private or public cloud, or be it towards the edge. And today we're going to be hitting a couple of the pieces that slide in really well with OpenShift, and we're going to be talking about Ansible quite a bit. We're going to be talking about Advanced Cluster Manager for Kubernetes. This is actually a product we have done at Tech Field Day in depth, and we're going to be getting into some demos for that today. This is an acquisition we made called StackRox. We've, of course, renamed it to Advanced Cluster Security. We will not be getting into the details of that product today, but maybe at a future event. And then the Open Data Foundation, or OpenShift Data Foundation, and this is based on Ceph. So this is sort of there's more pieces of our portfolio that kind of plug into OpenShift, like middleware and that type of stuff, but I'm really just trying to focus in on these product sets as it relates to OpenShift. One of the items that we covered last time we were here was something related to cloud services. This is something that we are really pleased with. We've done some joint engineering with AWS, some joint kind of go-to-market and integration with Azure. Obviously, we've got OpenShift on IBM Cloud, which is sort of a obvious piece because IBM owns Red Hat. And then we have something called OpenShift Dedicated, which actually predates what we call ROSA, which is the item on the left, Red Hat OpenShift Service on AWS, and Arrow, which is Azure Red Hat on OpenShift. OpenShift Dedicated is effectively, it runs on Google and it runs on Amazon, but it's essentially where the customer will do it themselves. It'll be customer run, whereas the items on the left is more of a SRE service. And so this is just a kind of a snapshot of that. I want to start first on the right. And the thing that we're really proud of is this is not a marketplace offering. This managed cloud service offering from Red Hat is in the AWS console. So this is going to be right next to ECS, EKS, etc. And so essentially, when you go down this route as a customer, you're going to be getting billed from Amazon. You're going to be being able to leverage their bill as you go, etc. Whereas I'll just pop back for a second. If you go the route of OpenShift Dedicated, essentially your billing is going to be coming from Red Hat in a more kind of subscription-based offering. So there is a difference there. That customers do enjoy. They like that flexibility of kind of being able to spin down their AWS bill use on ROSA. And on the left-hand side, you can see that we are also integrated into Azure. And that is going to be, it's not in the console, but it is essentially in the Azure management plane where you can leverage OpenShift there through Arrow. So that's just a very quick snapshot of some of the pieces that we're going to be talking about today. And one of the things I'd like to do is introduce Collin to you guys. He's the director of business value practice, and he's going to be talking about very quickly a use case that we did with a customer called Employers, where they use different parts of our portfolio, OpenShift, Ansible, etc.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us. So I am going to share with you a case study about a company called Employers Insurance. As Troy said, my name is Collin Webster. I am a director in our business value practice, but I was the Red Hat lead throughout this engagement with employers, and I'm still in contact with them. I'm excited about telling you this story because it is really a story about the power of the entire Red Hat portfolio And a lot of times our technologies are looked at kind of as individual or as silos. And there really is a lot of synergy between the products, and they are designed to work together. And this is one of those great use cases where we have measurable results as well as the impact of the Red Hat portfolio. It is a digital transformation story. And I think that part of what we need to understand about digital transformation, especially coming from a business value perspective, value typically comes from one of three places, right? Either reduced cost, increased revenue, or these days, increasingly, speed and agility, which gives you access to either decreasing costs or increasing revenue. And this is really a story about how a company kind of got agility by working with Red Hat. So Employers Insurance is a 113-year-old company. They are a mid-sized workers' compensation insurance company. Now, workers' compensation is kind of a unique insurance market. Every employer is required to have it by law. The laws are different from state to state, but it is a super highly regulated product, meaning that there is basically no difference between the products, and the product itself is a contract to accept risk. And so the only way for a company to differentiate is on price and service. And it's both price and service to the end business owner, but it's also price and service to the brokers that typically sell these policies. And a broker may carry policies from more than one insurance company. So for employers, being 108 years old, they had significant technical debt, and they really they didn't have the skills to modernize that. Their IT group really couldn't help them improve on how to reduce pricing, improve service. And there was a lot of fintech startups beginning to disrupt the industry, as well as aggregators. Now, we all know of like LendingTree and things like that, where you put in one application and you get lots of quotes back. Same idea in insurance. There are insurance aggregators, and they were starting to have a very big impact on the industry, and employers wasn't really able to take advantage of that. They also were very reliant on a subset of customers. They focus on small to medium businesses in low risk industries. And how that translated for them was that they were actually they were very heavily focused in California's tourism sector. And they realized that that was a risk for them if the California tourism sector were to take a hit. They were also only operating in about 37 of the 46 possible states they could operate in. And so there was untapped market that they hadn't yet entered. And again, IT wasn't able to really help them get into that new space. And they realized adding bodies would make them price uncompetitive, right? So they couldn't simply throw more people at it. That's what they had been doing. There was a new CIO who had come on board, and he had a mandate for change, and we'll talk about what that was. But essentially, we had a handful of project goals. They wanted to set up a repeatable framework for the entire organization, and they wanted to make themselves into a digital company that sold insurance. And I know that kind of cliche gets thrown around a lot, but that was really truly the goal here. They wanted to redesign some critical business applications using modern app dev. I'm going to give you a little context about all insurance companies. Because it's a contract, even some of their IT systems are regulated. And in this case, it's the policy admin and claims admin systems, PAS and CAS. And those systems are so complicated and regulated that changing them is a very long, drawn out process. So the goal here was to redesign business processes around the PAS and CAS that could have an impact right away. And they wanted to deploy these on a container platform in the cloud, and they wanted to be completely out of their data centers by 2023. Spoiler alert, they were out by 2020, so they were able to move quite quickly. Any questions so far? All right, let's talk the stack. So what was included in the solution component? Obviously, it included OpenShift Container Platform, which is a Kubernetes-based container platform, but it really does have a whole lot more to it, including access to CI/CD pipelines built into it automatically, a variety of different types of automation, et cetera. And so it really is more than just Kubernetes and a container platform. They did take advantage of our BRMS, which is now called Decision Manager, and that was used to automate the underwriting rules. As I mentioned before, they were only in 30 odd states and they wanted to get to 46. The existing underwriting rules were in a ginormous Excel spreadsheet, it was all underwritten by hand. Every policy was reviewed by hand, and that doesn't scale. And even though we think of Excel as being very user-friendly, when you have a over gigabyte Excel spreadsheet, it really does become unruly. It was just mind-bending how big it was. They didn't even really understand how big it was. We did include Enterprise Linux as the standard operating environment for security. We did have professional services right from day one, working with them side by side. And it wasn't because our services were magic necessarily. It's because, again, they were really a waterfall style company. They had just hired they had 3 people that were really more familiar with modern cloud native application development, but we needed to help them scale. And so we had to show those folks how to do it while bringing along the rest of the organization. Ansible Engine and Tower, which were used for configuration management, storage, patching, networking, cloud instances, as well as elements of the CI/CD pipeline. We included Smart Management, which is satellite, which helps manage your RHEL environments, as well as Insights. Insights is now something that is included in your RHEL subscriptions, but at the time, actually employers paid for it. And it's a great SaaS add-on to RHEL that integrates with Ansible. It allows you to see what the vulnerability states are of your RHEL images and actually automatically download playbooks for Ansible to remediate your environment. So it makes it very easy for one person to manage a large environment. In 2020, we added 3-scale API management, Fuse for data translation and integration, and then AMQ Streams, which is our implementation of Kafka, as well as Debezium, which is a database change data capture technology. And that is used for event-driven architecture that allows them to shorten batch windows by observing changes in the key databases in the organization and kicking off microservices that, again, can complement the business as their needs are now. They did also have container native storage as part of the solution. So really, it is, there's a few parts of the Red Hat portfolio that they didn't include, but as you can see, it was a very comprehensive solution.
Collin, I have a question. It's
Sure.
Enrique here. So maybe I missed it, but is this an on-premises project, a cloud? Does it include a migration from the on-premises infrastructure to the cloud?
Great question. The answer is that the OpenShift was deployed initially, it was deployed entirely in AWS. And they did have some on-prem existing AS400s, which are now in the IBM cloud. They had a lot of VMware, which is now also on AWS. And they actually used Ansible to manage that VMware infrastructure, even in AWS. So for all intents and purposes, what we're talking about today is all in AWS, but it was part of a broader move to get everything out of the data center and into clouds, one way or the other, the vast majority of which is AWS.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Great. Now, before we get to the results, one thing I did want to say here real quickly, our first engagement with them was October 2017. We actually began work with them actually on this project mid-January 2018, so very short time from first meetings to getting to work. And mid-January, we signed our agreements to start doing the work. The previous CIO had told the business for 4 previous years that the changes that we were trying to do were impossible. And when you see what I'm about to show you next, the timeline from mid-January to the first app go live was less than 80 days. We went live with our first application on May 1st. And we actually went live with another 5 additional applications in the first 12 months. And again, these are not around the edges, not very important applications. That first application was rewriting 19,000 business rules into the business rules manager so that we could automate underwriting, right? That's a huge thing. The next one was a payroll reporting. So in other words, it gets into wonky details about insurance, but basically if you can ingest payroll data from your customers, you can bill them monthly instead of annually for their premiums, which is a big advantage. They were paying a third-party company to do this service for them. We rewrote what that third-party business was doing directly natively in OpenShift and ended up saving them a tremendous amount of money there. We did policy audit, policy downloads, and endorsements. And we also redid the portal where those third-party brokers interact with and collect information to generate quotes for getting new policy quotes. And we did all of that in the first 12 months.
Just real quickly, Nathan Bennett, when you're talking about all those different things, just a nuts and bolts clarification question, are you talking about refactoring their pre-built applications, or are we talking about moving to a different application? What was that journey like?
Building from ground up. So we left the policy admin and claims admin systems intact, kind of black boxed them and used them as systems of record. But then we wrapped around them new microservice-based applications written natively on OpenShift. At the time using Spring, now looking at Quarkus for the frameworks for which they did the development.
Awesome, thank you.
So new revenue within that first year and a half of $40 million. Now this is a company who at the time their revenue was about $750 million. So you can see we're having a big impact on a company of this size in that amount of time. That revenue came from by automating the underwriting and putting it into the business rule system. We were able to go from 36 states or 35 states to 46 states, which is the total addressable market in those first 12 months. They had previously they'd been adding maybe one state a year. We added like 8 states in a very short amount of time. We also, by reducing the amount of time it took to generate a quote from 18 minutes down to 2 minutes, that was a requirement for getting access to that aggregator market, as well as developing an API between the aggregators and their policy underwriting system. So that allowed them to access a whole new market via those aggregators. And it also was a reduction in cost by eliminating that third-party company that was ingesting payroll data from their customers. That not only were they saving money, that third-party company was actually making mistakes. And when they later reran the updated business rules on things that the third party had done previously, they realized that party had been making a lot of mistakes. New software updates, they went from 8 months to literally every 2 weeks, just standard agile sprints. And they saw an increase in sales by 40% across 3 years and an increase in new policies. You can see they went into the AWS cloud, waterfall to agile, and their customer satisfaction ratings were much, much higher. And so again, I think this is really a story where we have concrete impacts, but we also used the entire portfolio. And it was not just technology. This was about helping them understand that technology requires changes in people and process. And our portfolio is designed around supporting that kind of agile DevOps, modern cloud application development processes. They needed a little help getting there, so our services team was with them to help show them the way at the beginning. But they took it from there. They had never even touched Kubernetes before, and it was great. About 9 months in, we were on the phone with them doing our regular check-ins, and they said, is there anything new? We asked them, and they said, no, nothing really new. Oh yeah, I guess we did an update to the cluster over the weekend, and no problem. So we didn't think that was worth mentioning. They had never touched a Kubernetes cluster before, and they were able to do updates on their own very quickly. So we weren't, this was not our services team doing all of this. This was teaching them how to fish and watching them go after it. So any questions?
Another question about Red Hat is working with open source software. Okay. So how much of this is professional services? I mean, the success of professional services, Red Hat, packaging the product correctly, or making the difference with the open source, and maybe the customer really wanting to do this and changing their totally their teams and everything, the way they do things, or something else.
Answer for your question, Enrico, is all of the above, right? I don't think any company can transform without a impetus from the top of the organization for transformation, without a doubt, right? We are not here to say that our technology will get a recalcitrant organization to change that doesn't want to change. I'm not saying that. On the other hand, I will say that the portfolio of products made a huge difference. Services played a role. But really, the services group was, again, facilitating the customer becoming familiar with Agile, DevOps, that kind of paradigm, which is not something that's unique necessarily to Red Hat. What I think is an important understanding about Red Hat's products, when we say a product like OpenShift, it is not simply one open source community that we just put a fancy face on and call it a product. I mean, OpenShift is a combination of over a dozen open source community projects, even RHEL is. And it's that combination of bringing the right open source community projects together, making sure that they interoperate together, that they're secure, and providing what businesses demand, which is a long support cycle with all of the parts and pieces working together, and potentially even backporting solutions. You know, if the community's moved on to a newer version, but your customer's on an older version, you know, they can't, in the community, if you go to support and you're on something new, they'll tell you, if you're on an older version, they'll tell you to get to the new version. We provide that kind of enterprise support that lasts that gives support for the period of time that businesses really need to be successful. So it really was all of the above, a customer willing to make a change, but also a partner in Red Hat that was able to help facilitate making that change with both technology and support.